Outside the Abbott house, Abby and Devon kiss before returning to reality. They promise to never lose this feeling, and she calls him husband. Ashley opens the door and is standing there with Dom. She welcomes them home. They pick up their son and tell him how much they missed him. Inside, Ashley laughs over all the presents Abby and Devon brought Dom from Fiji. Abby asks Ashley why she had Dom and not Louise. Ashley wanted more quality time with her grandson and relays that they made a Santa list and baked some cookies. She admits she wanted to welcome them home personally and hear about their honeymoon. She goes off to get cookies before hearing all about it. Devon tells Dom how much he missed him, and Abby gushes about how perfect their life is. They kiss. Ashley returns and Abby tells her about their bungalow over the water and the romantic sunsets. She gifts her mother with a beautiful painting made locally. It means strength and fortitude. Devon tells Ashley if she's interested. They got back some wedding photos. Ashley scoffs, "If I'm interested." They all look at the photos taken before the crash. Ashley remembers they left before hearing about all the crazy stuff surrounding Heather's murder. At Nate's place, Audra has brought coffee and scones from Crimson Lights. She worries about being unemployed. She might have to become one of Santa's elves. Talk turns to Amy, and Nate says he hired a private eye recommended by Devon to find Damien. It may not be long before he comes face to face with his half-brother. Audra's impressed. "You're not wasting any time." Nate thinks Amy deserves a reunion with her son. He asks what she thinks about her now. Audra says that she has a good feeling about her now. Nate's relieved. He's glad he's not wrong about trusting her. He explains he's put the PI in touch with Amy to get the pertinent details. And then they wait. Audra asks how he's feeling about all of this. Nate felt some trepidation at first, but he's become more intrigued and is actually looking forward to seeing what his older brother is like. Audra can't imagine what that will be like. Nate recaps that Damien's had a complicated life. He may not be thrilled when they come knocking. Audra thinks he'll be grateful considering his mother is dying. Nate reminds her Amy's kept the secret of his paternity all these years. This robbed Damien of a chance to know their father. Audra says that's all in the past. They can't change that, so what good does it do to focus on it? Nate says it sounds like Damien needs help. Maybe that will make up for all the opportunities that were lost, for all of them. At Society, neither Faith nor Sharon is eating much breakfast. Faith worries this was a bad idea. She still can't believe her mother was drugged. Who would want to do that to her and why? Sharon admits it's terrifying. She's afraid for herself, but even more so for her family. Sharon says if someone had access to her medication, they've been watching her. She worries that any of them, and even Daniel or Lucy, could still be in danger. They go over convincing an unhappy Noah to stay in London. Sharon tells Faith she also needs to leave and go back to college. Phyllis appears. She agrees. Faith needs to get away from her homicidal whack job of a mother. At Crimson Lights, Ian slips in right behind Maria's back and listens as she and Nick discuss Sharon's meds being drugged. Nick thinks the most terrifying part of this is that it might be someone they know. They wonder if the pills were altered at the pharmacy, or if it was an accident or a random crazy person. Nick's gut tells him there's nothing arbitrary about this. It happened repeatedly. It's not accidental. It's targeted. Maria hates thinking that somebody could do something so heinous to Sharon, and that it might be someone they know. Ian sits on the patio and eavesdrops as Nick tells Maria that Chance will reopen the investigation. The police will be all over it. Maria says it's not safe for anybody right now. Ian shakes his head. "Oh, you have no idea with that." He jumps up and leaves. Maria notices the door and tells Nick she's on edge. Nick can only imagine what Sharon's going through. At Society, Sharon tells Phyllis they've already done this. She's apologized and she'll be apologizing for the rest of her life. Phyllis wants justice. Sharon's sitting there having pancakes with her daughter. She'd like to have pancakes with Heather. How is her son supposed to move on and grieve? Sharon says she's changing her plea to guilty. Phyllis is glad and urges her to go do it right now. Sharon says there's a procedure involved. Phyllis wonders if this is a stall tactic from Michael, and reminds Sharon if the system doesn't exact justice, she'll do it herself and show her no mercy. Faith hollers, "Stop. That's enough. Leave my mother alone." Faith declares that her other is not some monster. Phyllis sighs, "Faith, I really hate to break it to you, but you have to admit it." Sharon hollers, "Stop it, Phyllis." She tells her she can come at her but not her child. She tells her to get out of there. Phyllis isn't going anywhere and tells Faith she's concerned about her living with an admitted murderer. Faith protests that her mother was drugged. Phyllis rolls her eyes and warns Sharon if she gets away with killing Heather, she will wish she'd gone to prison. Sharon advises her to look out for her own family and leave hers alone. Daniel comes in as Phyllis asks if that's a threat. Sharon and Faith file out and Daniel asks his mother, "What was that?" At Nate's place, Audra thinks he's putting too much pressure on himself to fix things for Amy and Damien. She muses that it must be his surgeon God complex. Nate just wants to have the best outcome. Audra says if Damien is open to a relationship with him, she has zero doubt he will have a positive impact on his life. He thanks her for that, and for being on his side. They hold hands. At the Abbott mansion, Devin and Abby learn from Ashley about Sharon running Phyllis off the road and confessing to Heather's murder. It sounds like a sociopath and someone much more dangerous than Sharon, Ashley says. Ian returns to the motel and startles a napping Jordan. She rants about Claire falling for the Newmans' lies and complains about Ian putting his hat on the bed, which is bad luck. He hollers at her to shut, and she warns him not to talk to her like that again. Ian puts her on notice that Nick Newman is getting the police involved again because of her shoddy work. Jordan's sick of him focusing on her problems. "Have you even laid you baby blues on Claire or Victoria or Cole?" Ian barks, "Priorities." Jordan says it's time for him to scratch her back. She can't stand watching Claire playing tonsil hockey with that nepo baby Kyle Abbott when she raised her to be so pure. Ian says his problems are bigger. They have to think fast or the entire plan could be derailed. At Society, Phyllis tells Daniel that it's unbelievable the lengths Sharon will go to in order to avoid paying for her crime. She's convinced this is all Michael. Daniel asks if she has a new defense. Phyllis says they're trying to claim that someone drugged her. Daniel thinks about this. Phyllis asks, "You don't believe that's true, do you?" At Crimson Lights, Sharon and Faith tell Nick and Mariah about Phyllis' attack. Sharon is worried about Faith. Yesterday Lucy came after her, today it was Phyllis, and now they've learned someone is targeting her. It's not safe for her there, and she should go back to college. What if this person isn't finished yet? Nick is with Sharon on this one. Faith's upset. Nick says there's a predator after her mother and maybe the whole family. "Your safety has to be a priority, Faith." Faith appeals to Maria, but she's with Nick and Sharon. Faith declares that she's not going anywhere, and they can't force her to. They stick together as a family. Isn't that what they've always taught her? At Nate's place, he thinks Audra's grown from her experiences. She hopes her judgment has gotten better, but trust isn't really her thing. Nate tells her to follow his lead. It's not nearly as scary as she thinks it is. Audra says what's scary is getting doors slammed in her face. Nate offers to reach out to his cousin again, but Audra wants to do this her way. Besides, Devin already said no and isn't likely to change his mind. Nate thinks Devon would feel differently if he saw her as he does. He likes having her in his life and wants her by his side, if that's not too scary for her. She assures him that's exactly where she will be, and they kiss passionately. At Society, Daniel assumes that Michael wouldn't go for a defense like Sharon being drugged without proof. Phyllis reminds him how many times Sharon belittled his family and attacked Lucy and made her run away in tears. Daniel hasn't forgotten, but her recent behavior doesn't jive with the Sharon they've always known. Maybe there is something to this theory. In the motel room, Jordan and Ian bicker. He hollers that she convinced him that she could pull this off, and now they're on the verge of getting caught. Jordan shoves him and reminds him that she's the master of this thing. He mocks her for getting caught in Victor's cage. She slaps the vodka out of his hand and calls him a bastard. She's done everything he's asked of her. Her details are as important as his. Y&R shouldn't be surprised she lost her focus while tainting Sharon's medication. Jordan insists there's nothing that will lead back to them. At Crimson Lights, Nick and Sharon relent and allow Faith to stay in town, but Sharon says she won't stop worrying. Who could hate her this much? Nick vows they'll find out. Chance will reopen the investigation. He asks Sharon if she's on board with not pleading guilty. She says she still killed Heather. Maria says she had PCP in her system. This is about getting justice for her. If she goes to prison, whoever did this gets away with it. Nick urges Sharon, don't just do it for us. Do it for yourself. At the Abbott mansion, Devin takes Dawn to clean his face. Ashley asks Abby to hear more about her trip. Abby wants to talk about her, and asks, "How are you? You seem really strong. Are you feeling okay?" Ashley won't lie, it's not perfect. Abby hugs her. "What's going on? Are you okay?" Ashley's having some nightmares about Paris, that's all. Abby has to ask, "Do you think that the Diddy is gone?" Ashley thinks she made a lot of progress at the clinic. Abby's glad. She asks if she was able to deal with the repressed trauma. Ashley admits nothing really came of it. They hug and Abby looks worried. In the motel, Y&R tells Jordan she better hope nothing can be traced back to them. He can blow her freedom all to hell. Jordan vows she'll take him down with her. Y&R says they'd better pull this off or they can kiss both of their futures goodbye. At Society, Phyllis tells Daniel this Sharon was drugged thing is a ploy to stay out of prison. Daniel argues she was acting out of character. Phyllis says the rage could have been building up for 20 years. She's not a stable person. Daniel says part of him wants to believe there's another explanation. He's having a hard time believe she's capable of murder. Phyllis insists that this is an attempt to keep her out of prison. They're trying to save that bitch's ass. I'm not going to let anyone get away with this. At Crimson Lights, Sharon's loved ones are relieved when she says she won't change her not guilty plea and she'll fight. There's a condition, however. She wants to have a trained professional hypnotize her. Sharon needs to know what happened when she blacked out. If they're lucky, maybe it will give them the missing answers they need.